Disney, 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 Disney. Hello, welcome to Dangerous Policy, a channel aimed at intelligent people wanting to discuss important issues facing life and society. My name is Crispin, and today I'm going to talk about the live-action remake of Mulan, the great tragedy and travesty that this film is, for all kinds of reasons. But also just personally for me, because my favorite Disney film of all time is the original animated Mulan. There are so many things about that film that are remarkable. First of all, it was the last ever Disney hand-drawn film, right? So all of the cartoon characters and stuff was drawn by hand. And that scene from the mountain still gives me chills. I remember the first time I saw that in the cinema, and I've seen it countless times since. It's just amazing, with the Huns just emerging at the mountain ridge, and the roar, and the sheer trembling of the protagonist down below. Like, it was such an extraordinary moment, and to know that all of those were just hand-drawn characters was just such a great creative vision. And then I've introduced this film to many people over the years. A lot of people who don't like animated films and things like that, it's like, I don't really feel like watching a cartoon. I'm like, oh, just give this a go. And 100% of the time, without fail, they'll be like a third of the way in. I'll be like, oh, you can turn it off if you don't want to watch it. And they're just like, no, this is pretty good, hey. So it's a really good film. But it's not just the development and creation of the film that is amazing. It's the story. It's a genuine hero's journey. And what makes Mulan a uniquely compelling character is that she is not in any way a Mary Sue. She is absolutely flawed. And basically, she makes perpetual mistakes all the way through the film. So here she is. She screws up the whole matchmaking thing. Like, the reason she doesn't get a good match at the start is just because she is a hopeless bride, right? Like, she actually really stuffs this up. And then she has this completely half-baked idea that she will dress as a man and go off and join the army in order to save her father. Incredible warm relationship between her and her father, but also a genuine sense of tension and discomfort with him being actually called up. The impact on that family is incredibly profound. And then there's this scene when she makes the decision to steal the armor, cut her hair, and ride off. That sequence is just such a profound moment for that character. You know, in that second, that everything in that character's life before is now going to fall into history, and all of her life to come will be determined by this profound choice. And then when she goes to the camp, it's clear she has no idea how to interact with men on any level. All she does is make enemies. All she does is piss people off. And then when it comes to the training, she's a girl. She's smaller. She's weaker. She doesn't have she hasn't been raised on the whole, guys interacting with one another and trying to outcompete with one another. So she doesn't know how the training system works. She doesn't know how to make friends. And then she continuously embarrasses herself, right, by just not being a good soldier. And right up to the point where she gets kicked out, right? She gets shamed out of the military as like the worst of the worst recruits. But because of her determination, because of her sense of choice and commitment to this, she overcomes those trials and does something that none of the other soldiers was able to do, not because she's stronger, but because she outthinks the situation and applies her brain to the task. And that is climbing the pole with the arrow by tying the two things together and climbing up the pole. It was such a profound moment, which earns her the respect of a commanding officer, of her fellow soldiers. And then afterwards, as part of a team, she's accepted into the group, and they all, working together, overcome those shared challenges. And then when they go off to fight the Huns, it's this, first of all, the enemy is extraordinarily competent. Like, Shan Yu is not a straw man bad guy. He is a serious invader who is impressive in his own right, with a great sense of authority and brooding darkness. It's a really quite a dark film for the Huns. I thought that was quite well done. And then Mulan herself, when she, it's her own insubordination that actually wins the day, right? So they go off. I mean, obviously, there's spoilers here. You should definitely, like, I won't, spoilers. If you haven't seen the film to this point, I think it's okay. But if spoilers from now on. So they go off to the to find the Han army, and they realize that the Chinese army that had been sent out before them was utterly crushed. And that's such a powerful moment. They're singing songs, they're on the march, they're off to war, and then they're just the brutal reality of the conflict just hits them in the face. And it's an amazing thing for both the characters but also the audience. And it treats kids with respect. Like, these are emotionally powerful scenes that the realities of war and conflict and death that we that we should actually be taking on board ourselves as key messages. And then when she gets to the mountain scene, that awesome mountain scene, she single-handedly destroys the Han army, but she does so in a way that's entirely believable and consistent with the character. She breaches orders, she does something reckless, she gets lucky, and the mechanism by which it happens makes perfect sense. And then, because she's wounded in the context of that, her gender is revealed, and the dire consequences that flow from that. And then the fact that she has to rely on her own sense of wit and trust from her former comrades to actually believe her that the threat isn't over and to rescue the emperor. And then the baseline relationship that at the end of the day, what really mattered was the relationship she had with her own father and that the bonds of kinship you have with one another. Like, this is the hero's journey of Mulan is an extraordinary story. And what makes it quite amazing for me is not only is she a flawed character all the way through, but she achieves astonishing things in a believable way. Like, you watch it and you're like, that could happen, right? I mean, some aspects of it couldn't because of the aspects of Chinese culture, but in terms of the actual physical progression of the story, it makes a lot of sense. So no wonder Disney classic, and again, my favorite Disney film. Fast forward to this abomination, and I am extremely grateful that one good thing, if anything, came out of the pandemic is that this wasn't released worldwide in cinemas, because I would have felt obliged, having Mulan as my favorite film from Disney, to go and see this in straight off the bat. And the sheer absolute disappointment that I would have experienced would have been so palpable that it might have ruined the original for me. But thankfully, I have not had that inflicted on me, so I can talk about this with only a moderate degree of anger rather than sheer despondency. So in this version of the film, she has this thing called Ki. Let's call it, Star Wars: The Force, right? And yep, Ki's a concept in China. That's fine. But instead of being a girl with all the problems of, being a woman who has no exposure to males generally, how to make friends with males, all that sort of stuff, all it is she has this power that she has to suppress because she's a girl. This deep power she's not allowed anyone else to see. And then she goes off to fight this, like, similar kind of story. She goes off to fight, minus all of the drama and the actual arc and everything. They skip over all the good bits. And she goes off to join the army. And she's basically holding herself back. that's the reason why she's not seen as the greatest of all the soldiers, because she is simply trying to contain the fact that she's an all-powerful Jedi. I mean, Keymaster. And then the bad guy in the film is very generic bad guy, right? But he's not even the real guy. He's the puppeteer. He's the puppet of this puppeteer, a witch, right? So there's this female witch who previously in the previous film was the kind of hawk that was the pet of Shan Yu, where in this film, she's actually a powerful witch and she's controlling everything. And then she switches sides because she likes Mulan, because Mulan's this female warrior and she's like, a girl trying to make it in a man's world. And so even though she's an all-powerful witch that can turn into everything and can control like everyone at a whim, apparently there is a reason why she feels like an oppressed woman in a male-dominated society, and she bonds with Mulan, who is the enemy, because she is a woman, and tells Mulan that she should just let herself go free. And with that message, Mulan gets rid of all her armor and goes into battle just as herself and destroys everybody because she has this powerful key that she had been suppressing her whole life. And so the message of this film is not there are themes of honor and dark choices and keeping secrets and overcoming adversity and building bonds through shared tragedy and messages of friendship and love for family. Like, no. The message is that if you're a woman, all you need to do to achieve anything you want in life is to release your inner power, and it'll happen easily. And this message has been recycled by Disney for the past 5-10 years, right? So incredibly, now the good news is that this film is being universally panned as a tedious, monotonous, grueling slog through incredibly boring couple of hours, a pale shadow of its once former glory. And people are lamenting for young women and young people generally today who have to be exposed to this and are getting these messages that there aren't any actual trials in life except for those imposed by men. I mean, that's not factually true. Things should not come easy to people, because difficult things should never be easy. But having said that, Mulan is getting panned not only by, the traditional critics, but by people across the political spectrum for another much darker reason. So the film was largely shot in Xinjiang province in West China, and if that word is familiar to you, that is where 1 million Uighur Muslims are kept in concentration camps because of their belief system in order to re-educate them with Communist Party ideology. And okay, it filmed there, that's pretty bad. But in the credits for Disney's Mulan, they thank an organization which runs those camps for all of their great support. So I wanted to read out some questions posed by Senator Josh Hawley of the United States to the Disney company over its filming in Xinjiang and its cooperation with the Turpan Public Security Bureau, which administers the internment camps. And he had a list of 9 questions, which I think really cut to the heart of the matter. And he says, look, I request your answers to the following questions. Does Disney agree that the Chinese Communist Party is responsible for imprisoning and torturing Uyghurs and other Muslim ethnic minorities in Xinjiang? Why did Disney choose to film portions of Mulan in Xinjiang despite the fact that the Chinese Communist Party was imprisoning and torturing Uyghurs and others in Xinjiang at that time? 3. What assistance did Disney receive from the Turpan Public Security Bureau and other Chinese government agencies involved in these atrocities? 4. How did Disney compensate the Turpan Public Security Bureau and other Chinese agencies for any assistance rendered? Is Disney still providing compensation to Chinese entities listed in the Mulan closing credits? And does it plan to provide compensation to these entities in the future? 5. Has Disney coordinated, collaborated, or otherwise engaged with any of the Chinese actors who have been designated for sanctions by the Treasury Department on account of their contributions and atrocities in Xinjiang? 6. Does Disney condemn the atrocities committed by the Chinese Communist Party against Uyghurs and other Muslim ethnic minorities in Xinjiang? 7. Will Disney sever its relationships with the Chinese Communist Party in response to the party's abuses in Hong Kong and elsewhere? 8. Will Disney pull Mulan from Disney Plus in order to avoid any other glorification of Xinjiang or validation of the Chinese Communist Party officials and agencies responsible for the atrocities in that province? And 9, will Disney donate any of the profits drawn from Mulan to non-governmental organizations dedicated to fighting human trafficking and other atrocities underway in Xinjiang? Goddamn. Those questions really cut to the heart of the matter, and it speaks to a speech that I did refer to in a previous episode by US Attorney General Bill Barr about the complete duplicity and hypocrisy of American companies operating in China. That on the one hand, they're willing to condemn what they see as things that are wrong in their own countries. They won't cooperate with the US government, but they'll make full cooperation with the Chinese Communist Party, and Disney is one of the worst offenders. And Mulan really speaks to that. Now, the main actress from Mulan, they had a previous embarrassment where she is like they actually auditioned over 1,000 actresses to play Mulan before settling on this girl, and she shortly after filming had completed, publicly made comments about how she supported the Chinese police operating in Hong Kong and how Hong Kong really needed to get with the Chinese Communist Party program. So she's clearly a Chinese Communist Party apparatchik. And in fact, one would assume, probably with some credibility, that she would never have been allowed to play Mulan unless Disney had got the okay from the Chinese government. So there would be an ideological element, not just to where the film was created, but also the casting choices. So this film is really lays prostrate before the Communist Party dictum, and the story elements that have been changed from the original Mulan, some of them are just the woke ideology of the Disney executives that promote this rather distorted self-empowerment ideology over actual story. And secondly, that the story elements have been changed at the wishes of the Chinese government. Now, some of them you could argue, the emperor would never bow to anyone. You could say that that's part of Chinese culture, right? You could justify that. But other changes are at the behest of the Chinese government to basically glorify and legitimize the rule of the Chinese Communist Party. And what we can all be grateful for is that this film is so bad that it doesn't do that effectively, because it's such a painful watch. But I think it's going to stand as a marker for future decades as to the high point of American hypocrisy, American company hypocrisy, when it comes to dealing with the Communist Party. So it deserves all of the criticism that it's received and more. Do not spend the $30 US required for Disney for on top of your Disney Plus subscription to pay for it. It is a complete waste of money, aside from the ethics of it. And hopefully this will start to lead to a change in US company policy to become a little bit more patriotic and have a higher level of moral clarity when it comes to who you should be doing business with. That's my thoughts on it. Did you like the film? Did you think that I'm being too harsh? By all means, leave your comments down below. Happy to engage. And thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.